continue now through the level of the proud. Here, as throughout, Botticelli was not greatly interested in the particular persons Dante addressed, but in the panorama of the canto, which he rendered as a single vignette in 3 moments. Virgil points out to Dante what look like marching boulders. Dante realizes they are actually being carried by doubled-over souls. Dante speaks with one of them. In the illustration for Canto 12, the pilgrim's course takes them over pavement engraved with images of pride punished. Botticelli shows them as 3-dimensional visions, in realization of the lines, "Whose the brush and whose the pen that drew those outlines, shaded in those shapes? Whose that mastery that had to leave gasping the subtlest human skill? The picture dead seemed really deceased, the image living lived. One looking on the real events would have seen less, and that less clearly than I did then, of all I walked across, bent and peering. First, I saw on one side he who was made more splendidly eminent than any creature, Lucifer, falling in a flash down from heaven." Lucifer is easy to make out with his 6-fold bat wings, recalling the 6-fold pinions of the angels in Isaiah's vision, though the feathers have been degraded to hellish webbing, and he is now covered with fur, indeed, the ape of God. Just left of Lucifer is the haughty giant Briareus' destruction. Briareus, who attempted to take Olympus from the gods, has been abridged to a severed head, a tidy solution for how to render the monster with 50 heads and 100 arms. The image of Briareus' defeat is so hard to make out, I will have to walk you through it. At right is Athena, helmeted, holding her spear in one hand and her shield with its Gorgon head in the other. That is Mars at center, standing with legs wide apart. We can distinguish his belt and his beard. He holds in one hand the huge severed head of Briareus. At left, Apollo walks towards the others. We can see his bare feet, his belt, the spear he holds in his left hand, and his long hair emerging from under his helmet. The figure in the rear belongs to the Tower of Babel vignette. Hacked-off fragments of Briareus' giant allies are scattered around the background. Here a head, there a leg, there an arm. Next is Nimrod, builder of the Tower of Babel, standing at the base of his toppled edifice, arms raised in terror. Men and masonry fall. On the ground, some run, some lie dead. Next we see Niobe. She boasted she had 14 sons and daughters, while the Titaness Latona had only 2, not reckoning that these latter were Apollo and Diana, goddess and god of the bow. These avenged their mother's dignity by shooting down all of Niobe's children. Niobe's grief was so extreme she wept till she became a spring. Botticelli shows Niobe covering her face in her hands. Below her is her own reflection in the pool widening at her feet. To her right is one of her fallen sons. He too is imaged in the pool. Botticelli has shown the terrible event reflected in the mother's mind. Next is the Babylonian general Holofernes, who arrogantly attacked Israel, supposing she had no effective god to defend her. In the foreground, Holofernes, his rank indicated by his full parade armor, lies asleep before being slain by Judith. Behind him, the Assyrian cavalry flees, their campaign foiled by a lone woman. At center, we see the poet's encounter with the angel who guards the next level. In the very middle, the angel rushes forward to help Dante climb. This last action is not described in the poem. It is Botticelli commenting on how eager the angels are to help those who repent. This scene's importance for Botticelli is emphasized by its target position, but also by the way it is bracketed. On the right, Virgil points ahead to the angel. At left, the angel opens his arms and wings in wide welcome when he sees Dante. The encounter at center is wholly enclosed by the moment that immediately precedes it. To the left, Dante is about to mount the steps to the next level, and the angel lightly brushes Dante's forehead with his wings, effacing one of the sin-indicating letters cut into his brow when he passed the gate. Dante will only discover what has happened when he reaches up and touches the edited fleshly text. In the previous canto, Dante studied images engraved on the pavement of the proud. Here, on the Terrace of Envy, Dante tells us the way is singularly raw and unadorned. We are shown the traveller's arrival. Virgil is uncertain which way to go. We see the moment when he looks up at the sun and decides to follow the day star as his guide. When in doubt, proceed towards the light. As they walk along, voices pass over the poets, crying out famous examples of generosity, the virtue opposed to envy. We see Dante's surprise when the loud sounds come out of nowhere. Next, Virgil directs Dante's attention to the envious, whose dull-colored garments make them almost invisible against the wall they lean on. Botticelli has not shown us the horrible detail of their torment, their eyes, which looked on others with envy, sewn shut with metal thread. He has rendered the envious in such a way as to make them seem all placidly asleep, cuddled together like kittens. Botticelli, whose career was one splendid success, whose works radiate graciousness and pleasure, was personally too unacquainted with envy to do justice to this vice. The plate for Canto 14 is much the same as its predecessor. The drowsy-looking envious lean against the wall. Dante speaks with one. Then Virgil hustles him ahead. On their way out, another disembodied voice cries out, causing the travelers to halt stunned.